You're at the North Carolina Hall of Fame, Drag Racing Hall of Fame inductees. There's a billboard right over there of all the guys going to get inductees. We're going to give speeches, so sit back and listen to the stories that's going on. Here's all your inductees. Bill Blair's going to be here. Warren Johnson's here. Every one of them. You'll hear every kind of stories about any of them you want to hear from. So sit back and enjoy.
Let's quieten down a little bit. We're going to get started. First thing I want to do is recognize. First thing I'd like to do is recognize the sponsors that helped us put this thing together. It's not easy, and I appreciate everything that all these people behind me do. IHRA, Randy Weatherford, WS Construction, Hayes Jewelers of Lexington, they donate the awards. MJ Printing, Mark Joyce for everything that he does, and our new sponsor here, Kim Source Racing Methanol. All you bracket cars out there running methanol, this should be your choice, right here. Next, I want to introduce Mr. Steve Airwood, and he's going to start a meeting. Steve?
Thank you, Mark. A great turnout. What a great weather we have blessed with this weekend. If you're not from around here, we had a couple of rough weekends around here so far this year. But, good weather today and good turnout. Appreciate everybody joining us. This is would have been our 20th annual North Carolina Drivers Association North Carolina Hall of Fame. And unfortunately, because of the hoax scam, we missed 1 year in skip, so actually it's our 19th one we've done. But it's quite an honor to always serve as part of this. We started this in 2007. Jim Turner, this was his idea. Jim got this thing rolling, and we had our first meeting in January 2007. And some of our original board members are still with us. Mark Joyce, Frank Spittle, Bill Blair, and my lonesome self, Senator Linwood, Alva Dillon, of course. In fact, I'd like to introduce those on our selection committee. Would y'all please stand, please, for the selection committee for the North Carolina Drivers Hall of Fame? If you know someone that deserves to be in this Hall of Fame, let some of these folks know. And we definitely, we meet every year and go over everybody's biography and whatnot and background. And actually, you don't have to live in North Carolina. Warren Johnson is an example of that. But Warren raced so much in the Carolinas that he was warranted and worthy of being part of this association. How many folks have been to this before, this Hall of Fame? Thank you so much. Thanks for coming back. Appreciate that. we like honoring those in our sport. It's been a wonderful sport, and it's been a great industry. And as you've been before, you heard me say this before. Sport's been great for me. It made my ex-wife a very wealthy woman, and I'm most appreciative for. I didn't finally get on the other side of that. But I also would like to acknowledge all those former members of the Hall of Fame. If you can stand and raise your hand if you're inducted in the North Carolina Dragster Hall of Fame, would you please rise? Raise your hand. Thank you so much. Cell phones, and Bubba always reminds you that. If your cell phone goes off, you have to come up here and sing the national anthem. So please get off your cell phones. And I always give this speech, or acknowledge this, of course it never works, that nobody wants to hear anybody speak for more than 3 minutes. So keep that in mind. And that doesn't work with Roy Hill, but it does. And you know, if you've been a part of this in the past, you know, my opening remarks, I usually pick on Roy, and I decided this year I'm not going to pick on Roy. Did Roy make it in? Roy, you in? Oh, I'll speak slower. I had dinner last night with Roy and his lovely wife Jan, and Warren Johnson and Arlene Johnson. Arlene Johnson, by the way, has been inducted in the International Dragster Hall of Fame next month. She's receiving the Tag Officer Award. But I'm sitting at the table and I'm thinking about the women in this industry and Amanda, who helps Bubba so much with this event, that they're in the background, but they're everything. And I think anybody in the Hall of Fame would probably miss to himself if it wasn't for his spouse. He would not be as successful as he's been. In drag racing, there were two kinds of wives: great wives and ex-wives. So on this Valentine's Day, let's show appreciation for all the wives. Thank you, folks. Again, thanks for coming, and I'm going to stick to my 3-minute rule, and that's it for me. Mark Joyce.
Well, folks, we are honored to have this many people. I was talking to Frankie Spittle. This is about the biggest crowd we've had in a while. I think the weather's got a lot to do with it. Thank the good Lord. At this time, folks, one of our board members is not with us, Greg Burrow. His wife had a mini stroke, and I want y'all to keep him in prayers, and her too. So once again, miss him here today. So, but I'm going to move along here, folks. Start off with our first inductee. Guy with a lot of star power, let me tell you. Didn't know it till people come by wanting the posters, and we run out. First time in forever, we run out of posters. I apologize. If you want one, come on by and send it to the booth down at NJ. I'll be glad to get it off to you. If not, I'll definitely have some here next year. But this time, I want to get Rodney Price up here. Rodney. And he's going to speak the good words and induct Mr. Melvin Yao. Come on up, Rodney.
Well, my name is Rodney Price. I had the honor of introducing Mr. Melvin Yao from Lillington, North Carolina. This is my first time speaking in front of a crowd like this, if you can't tell. I'm more comfortable behind a steering wheel than behind a microphone. But when he asked me to say a few words about Melvin, I didn't hesitate. Some people deserve to have their story told, and Melvin is one of those people. Melvin was born on March 8, 1940 in Lillington, son of Frank and Melly Yao. He graduated from Lillington High School in 1959, married his sweetheart Faye the same year, and went to the Nashville Auto Diesel College. When he came home, he opened up a shop on McDougal Road and started building some race engines. In 1965, Melvin started entering events with a racing partner named Tom Grissom. The car sponsor was a Dodge dealership, with their slogan on the side, the best deal. The best was painted inside of a big number 1, and it was meant as a sales pitch, but when the car kept winning, all people could see was that big number 1. One magazine article said, that best deal, number 1 Dodge, has been a bad deal for the competition. He won at Indianapolis. He won at Long Island. He won the Maryland State Championship. He set 9 track records
at 9 different drag strips in just 5 months, including setting national records at Richmond. Melvin was runner-up at Superstock Nationals at York, the largest single-day drag race ever held, known as the Woodstock of drag racing, the greatest drag race in history. But runner-up wasn't good enough for Melvin. He came back the next year and swept the field. Melvin was the 1966 NASCAR Grand Stock champion. Then came Pro Stock. Melvin drove the famous Billy the Kid car for Billy Stepp. At the Maple Grove season opener, Melvin was, and I'm quoting, virtually unstoppable, track record after track record. Grumpy Jenkins and his new Chevy Vega couldn't catch him. At Nationals, he shocked Dick Landy and the Dodge fans by putting him away in the first round. He won Beach Bend Pro title. He won Bluegrass Nationals, Low ET and Top Speed. He won the Turkey Trot Drags in Gainesville, Eliminator title and Low ET. At his very first NHRA major event, he set Low ET in qualifying alongside Jenkins, Nicholson, and Roush. Melvin ran an 894 at over 151 miles an hour. That made him the first Pro Stock driver to break into the 8-second zone. Billy Stepp himself took out a full-page ad specifically about Melvin, and I'll quote this because it matters. Melvin is tops and has won every race since he's been with us. What can you say about the best? Jim Amos says Melvin Yow was one of the pioneers of Superstock and Pro Stock drag racing. Carcraft magazine named him a high riser, an honor for the sport's rising stars, and noted his winning percentage was over 95%. These aren't my words, these are from magazines. Dodge's #1 man in racing. The most consistent Pro Stock driver in the country. That's what the drag racing world said about Melvin Yow. From Pomona, California to Atco, New Jersey, from Bristol to Gainesville, Rockingham, Melvin won rounds everywhere they ran. And at the peak of all that, Melvin walked away. He had a wife and 3 little girls back home in Lillington that mattered more. You can go online and find people still discussing specific things Melvin was doing to race cars in the 60s and 70s. Not just remembering, but debating how he did it. When your work still has people talking 60 years later, that's a legacy. Melvin has run multiple businesses for over 60 years, has served the Somerville Bun Level Fire Department for 60 years, 35 of those as a chief. He was named Lillington's Man of the Year in 1992 and received the Order of the Longleaf Pine in 2016, the highest civilian honor a governor can give. He raised 3 beautiful daughters, Gloria, Diane, and Barbara Gale. He's got 7 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. Melvin has been a role model to me my whole life, and I know I'm not the only one. I've seen Melvin do the right thing when nobody was looking, and nobody would have ever known, but he did the right thing anyway, because that's who he is. You can't put that in a trophy case. But that's why I'm standing up here today, because the man Melvin is matters more to me than any race he ever won. Melvin will tell you it's not what Melvin Yow did, it's what Jesus Christ did for Melvin. Amen. What a racer, what a man. A faithful life well lived, and a man well loved. Thank you, Melvin. Please help me welcome into the North Carolina Drag Racing Hall of Fame, Mr. Melvin Ross Yow.
He's coming. I had to tell him he didn't know. go. People standing and sitting down now. Here we go.
I'd like to thank all of you for being here. It's been a great life. As as Rodney says, whatever Melanie done was for the help of Jesus. We traveled. We worked hard at it. Didn't have back then the funds to run the big money. But we had a great time all over and had respect of wherever we were at. We're glad to be there. We're glad to offer our services for whatever it was. We traveled most of the United States. Didn't miss but a few states. Enjoyed it from Florida to Long Island to Canada, back to LA and down through Illinois and all the other small towns, cities, and states. The thing about it is, it's all of you people in here that have families. Families stood behind it, helped things work. Had a great wife. She put up with it. That's a good thing. But whatever that we do, whatever you do, that we need to understand that it's about friends wherever we are. It's friends. God said, I don't call you a servant because you don't know the master's business. So I call all of you my friends, wherever they're at, because things that happen here and over the years and whatever we do is through God's will. And I'm living proof of what it does and the life that I lived. And putting up with these, with our organizations as we did and we have, and we think to have people as these people to support us, support the men and the women of the drag racing careers as much as life, because a lot of you here are not participants in drag racing, but you're homemakers. You do the work. Without you, we wouldn't have this meeting today. But I again thank every one of you here. I know a lot of them from years back, several of them from home. Probably the drag racing competitor is here because Mr. Roy, we go back a long ways with him and Mr. Sam Kennedy and all of them. And again, I appreciate you people supporting me. And as I say, I'm your friend. If you need somebody in this midnight, call me. I'm your friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great words, well spoken, let me tell you. Folks, also all our inductees, when we get done with the ceremonies, we're going to do pictures, present your award and your jacket, so just hang tight there for us picture taking folks, and we will do it all at the end. Yep. Kind of move things along here. It's one thing done with Jim Turner over the years that we had to be on schedule, folks, so we can't get too far behind. That's right. Now we move on to another great Eastern North Carolina racer, well overdue to be in this Hall of Fame, and we're glad to have him. Great support by his family. But to induct Garley Daniels into this 2026 North Carolina Drag Racing Hall of Fame, I need Mr. Buddy Martin to come up.
Do I really have to say good things about Garland? Okay. I'm telling you, I didn't realize what all this guy really had done until I started asking a few questions and looking around a little bit, but he's been tough, and when it's sportsman racing, you gotta say Garland's right at the top of the ladder in that deal, because, I mean, for someone to go out and win, or was runner-up in 30 races, and he won 23 of the 30. So that's strong, and it wasn't just in one category. He did it in modified, he did it in comp, and it was just unreal. He won 5 national events, and he won Indy. That makes up about 10 of them. And it's just so much that he did in the world titles. He won in 1979 and 1985, and it was just amazing. And the guy actually had a job to go along with that. So he was working a job and then traveling across the country, and we all know, as Melvin said, that a lot of traveling in this thing, that's no doubt about it. And I want to congratulate Melvin as well. He did a great job driving for us some, so he's good guy, good man. But getting back to Garley, he just, like I said, the biggest thing that impressed me about him when I got a chance to spend some time with he and Randy in the Pro Stock truck was, you go into the track and they unload the vehicle, and that's pretty much it. Time to go race. And Garley's thing was, somebody come by and say, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I did that at the shop. I came to the track to race. And that was the case. You just didn't see him doing a lot of work on the vehicle at the racetrack itself. And that was just tickle to death at all the things he did. But one thing that I don't understand is, Randy, is down at Coastal Plains in 1990, I think it was, Raleigh beat you. Did he do your tune-up before? But it's just, like I said, I got an opportunity to spend some time with them when they were running the Pro Stock truck, and they were tough, and I think Randy had a real opportunity to possibly win the championship. He hadn't broken the drive shaft at Indianapolis, so they're tough. Garley, why don't you come on up here and tell people what you did? Yeah, this man deserved to have been here a lot longer. I'll let you talk. I won't stand here with you. Make sure you tell the truth.
Thank you much for talking. You don't usually get me out here, but I don't know how y'all done it, but anyway. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame for voting me in, and Buddy, and all these things on it. And my family for putting up with me all these years. But I'd feel a lot more comfortable if they can have a steering wheel and a shift. Maybe I wouldn't feel quite as bad, but I really don't know where to start. I had a friend that I went to racing with on the weekends, and he finally bought a new '63 Chevrolet, and I started going with him every weekend, and something's wrong with this thing here. It's moving all around on me. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I got hooked like everybody else did on drag racing, and went with him every weekend for a couple of years, and then I finally decided I wanted to try it. So I started gathering up a few parts here and there, and finally got enough parts and bought an old '58 Chevrolet body from, I think, for $50 or something, and it took me a couple of years to get it together, but then I went down the first pass was down the Newport drag strip. Back in '65, I believe, and one of the fellows that run the track is here today. Larry Howard. He was 88 years old, and yeah, there he is right over there. And they closed it down in '66. 1 year after I started, I think, and won the points meet down there that year, and that was closed up on me, and didn't give me a chance the second time. But anyway, I sold that car at the end of the year. We used a tow bar to pull the car around. That wasn't real great. That was a mess. But I sold the car and I bought me a trailer. I said, I'm gonna have a trailer whether I have anything to put on it or not. So this thing just won't stay still. I don't know what's wrong. But, anyway, I got me a trailer, and he finally got me a '57 Chevrolet, two-door sedans put together, and raced that for a year or two, and then I sold it and built a panel wagon, and run it for a year or so, and had good luck with it, and I don't know, this thing's shaking a little harder all the time. I don't know what's wrong with it. But anyway, we sold that, and I know what it was. NHR done away with the 4-speeds in the '57 Chevrolets after we run them for 3 or 4 years or so. Couldn't run them no more, so sold the car and helped some other boys work on their stuff. And anyway, I turned around, the boys sold the motor and the car and the body, the truck, and I ended up buying the body back from him and built me a modified motor to put in. First one I ever built. I never just bought me a new set of Chevrolet heads from Chevrolet, and I ground on them a little bit with a drill and a stone and tried to make them look pretty. I didn't really know what I was doing, but anyway, I didn't ever run it but once or twice, and then I decided to start working on my house in build a new house in '71, and I was working on the job and tried to do that on the weekends, and I was in the National Guard and had one weekend out of the month I had to do that, but it took me about 14 months to build that house, and I got down to October the next year and decided I told my wife I was run out of money. We needed about $2,500 I had a price on it for the carpet and the tile in it, and I ran out of money. So I told her I was going to drag that old car out and go down to Jacksonville. He was having a $500 race that weekend. That was a lot of money back then. And went down and won that, come down to me and David Searles. A lot of you may know David. Sometimes he was out of control and whatever, but he slapped me on the shoulder and said, if you outrun me, I'm going to buy that thing. I didn't pay him a whole lot of money, and luckily I outrun him. So
Went on home that night, and the next morning, he woke me up. He come on to Jacksonville and spent the night at the Holiday Inn in Newbern. So he woke me up and wanted to know what I had to have for that car. What I had to have for it. You're right. I had $500. So $2,000. I tell that tale every once in a while. Somebody said you had to have $2,500. I said no. I already had $500. I just needed $2,000. David was buying his motors from Booth and Aaron up in Michigan or something. I reckon was where he was at. But I ain't gonna tell him what he was paying for them motors, but I sold him the whole car for $2,000. So I finished that house. And then after I finished that and sold my other one, we built a shop and to work in. So I started traveling. That's the first time I'd ever done any traveling. In '73, I went to the first national event, Columbus, Ohio. Got up there and tore the spider gears out of the old 12-bolt rig, and they didn't know much about them. But anyway, I'm not sure whether you could use the spool rolled in or not. Anyway, as soon as we got enough money, we got her together anyway. But then we went to Englishtown and got up there and got runner-up. Butch Legal, long then you could run flat out on the final run. I didn't have no chance, nothing for him. But anyway, I set me on fire then. Second race and then got runner-up. Anyway, went on that year and had some good times with the old Chevy 283, old stock, and ran it for a couple of years, and George Security come along and he wanted me to put an automatic in that thing and sell it to him. So I done that, and when I done that, I started in the super modified deal. And I went with that a couple of years and then done fair with it in '77, and Jimmy Miller from up in New Jersey, he wanted that one, so I sold him that one at the end of the year and built a new one, another new one. So we went to Gainesville that year in '78 with a brand new car from one end to the other, stickers on the tires, and never even let the clutch out other than get it on the truck. Got down there and it was running real good, and I think I got #1 qualifier that year down there. But every time I ever run, that thing was getting puffing a little bit harder out the valve covers. Didn't get the pistons. Along then, back the only way you could do put pistons in them, bump one at a time, put no head gasket, and grind off the clear spots and dye it and grind some more. But anyway, by the time I got down to the finals, semifinals, I was coming down the scales and I was spraying oil everywhere. That thing was puffing so bad, it cracked every crack in the oil pan. We blamed it on the oil pan at that time, but we didn't realize that we had towels on it and tape on it and everything else. And they had called back and told Buster. We pushed it to the start line, up to the water box. And just as soon as I cranked it, Buster was on his knees and looking down, and no, wouldn't let me run. So I got down to the runner-up that year, and then we went on to anyway, we went to Montreal, Canada. I ain't never forget that one. Got rained out first weekend, had to turn around and go back. Frank Sawyer, the guy that helped me with it, him and his son went with me, and they had to be back to work. Well, I was on vacation the next week, but I couldn't afford to fly them home, so I had to bring them home. And my wife and children went back with me, and we went back up there, and we got down to 3 cars. And I come across the scales, and I was dead on. I said, Lord, I ain't putting no gas in this car all day long. So we got on back to the pits, and sure enough, everybody jumps in and starts helping you. Then I plumber got about it. I didn't even think about it.
Went to the starting line, the light started down, and I hit the throttle, and that thing said, boom, and I didn't even move. Buster said, Darley, what's the matter, what's the matter? I said, the fuel pump quit. And pushed it back to the truck, so the boys helped me, and got back to the truck. My wife said, what in the world happened? I said, I got to put gas in it. She stomps her foot like that. She says, I said, if somebody would have helped me, maybe I wouldn't have thought about it. Boy, that was the wrong thing. All the way back from Canada, it probably weren't 6 words said. I'm sure it was 5 anyway. Anyway, we made it home. Then we went to, let's say, Englishtown. Got up there and come down to being back Billy Mansell. That's the year I started. There was 30 cars there, and I started out. Usually I didn't ever run class. You could run in, you could run fast enough in qualifying. When you were qualifying, if you run fast enough, you were in. So I didn't have no spare parts. So I usually would let somebody or just go in red light or let somebody else have it in the class, and instead of wasting all that time. And I had 30 cars up there, so I decided that time I really wanted to try it. So I waded through them in one class, and then got down to the final round. Billy Mansell, run him. Had him covered good. Everything went good until I went to third gear. Tore third gear out of that thing. And that was it. We went on down, and I reckon, you know how any of you been there, time you get down there and take pictures and fill out contingency and everything, it's usually about an hour before you get back. And when I got back, Randy was a little taller than him, and he was just a crying away. His eyes were all red, and I said, what's the matter? She said, he's been laying in the back seat crying ever since he lost. So, anyway, we ended up there until we went to Indy. Got down to the finals again in Indy, and I realized these. The devil had Billy, Coots, Kenny, no, it weren't Kenny, what was his name? Don Coots, that's right. Had him covered a tenth or more, and red lighted. Yes, indeed, it all get out. Went down across the scales, and Randy and his little boy and the other boys went with me, and they were coming down that scales when they come across the scales, and Randy said to me, he says, Daddy, we just can't win, can we? Boy, that hurt. But anyway, I believe it made me more determined than ever to go to the World Finals that year. And we ended up, we went out there and we won that one. I could tell you a whole lot more about it, but this thing won't stay still with me. So. But anyway, got out there and we won. Boys carried it out for us, and Randy and I flew out on Thursday afternoon, and we won the race, and then I knew they were going to make me tear down. I had tore down every time I ever had to go anywhere. I had to pull the head off everywhere. But they never questioned anything I ever done. And I never had any authority to question the thing I ever done. But anyway, I just knew in the world there weren't no way. We had red eye out of there, and it was probably 7:30, 8 o'clock then. And we got through winning, and I went over to Jim Dale. He was the tech director at that time, and I knew in my mind I was wasting my time, but I said, ain't no way in the world I could get by without pulling this thing down. Y'all check me all year. I said, I need to catch the plane out of here, and I sure hate to send this thing home all to pieces. Took apart, and I can't get it apart. Take it apart and put it back together before I got to get out of here. He said, I think we can work that out. And he let me go without having to tear it down. And Amy Falk that year, she won Superstock. And they made her tear down, and she ain't let me live that down since. Every time she ever sees me, she reminds me of that. But anyway, we had another good year the next year, and then, I remember we won around, Gary Jessel sent me a belt down by Frank Antonio, Tommy belt, one we put on there, one of the first ones that he had, probably may have been the first one. And when we put it on there that week, well, we got rained out, and I ain't let much, like Buddy said, I don't like to work on a car at drag strip. If it ain't ready when I get there, I should have stayed home. But, anyway, it got rained out, so I went home and put that belt on it that week. Went back and won that race, and come down to me and David Nichols. And, he was, the final run, he, started with Frank, sitting on the side over there, so we pulled over and waited for him. Long then, they'd let you wait if you wanted to wait on somebody, so we waited on him until he get that car started. And still out running, and he was walking in here today, he reminded me of that. Said, you sit down and wait on me and then still kick my butt. But that means a lot when somebody remembers you like that. And we had a good time, and then we got a chance to run the B6 with Jenkins, and that was a good time. He called me during the winter of '82 and wanted to know if I was interested in this with the V6. So we did, and we had a lot of good luck with that, and that led on, and that helped us a lot when we started to run the trucks. That was really just ended up being 2 more cylinders than what we'd been doing. So anyway, drag racing's been good to us. We've been hard, and we've seen a lot of the country. My wife says we've seen it all, but we've seen it at night. I've seen a lot of good people that I've never seen before and met, and we've done a lot of places that we were never seen, and it's been a good, enjoyable mission. Thank you.
Just so you guys know, I made the note, put a steering wheel on here and take care of the podium.
I hear you, buddy. Well, folks, to move things along here, we're going to induct Mr. Blake Wiggins, longtime pro mod racer from the Carolinas, and to do that, Mr. Bobby Bennett. Come on up, Bobby.
Okay, I would like for you to just imagine in your head that I'm going into my office in the morning, 8 a.m., to begin writing. And all day long I write drag racing from 8 a.m. till, I don't know, when the sun's about to come back up. But anyway, so I want you to imagine that I'm telling you a story here. It's going to be within 3 minutes, but writing on a guy that I watched as a kid, when I was a kid, not when he was a kid, but when I was a kid growing up at Spartanburg Dragway. And I'd like you to know that the word integrity, we know what integrity means. It's when you do the right thing when no one's looking. And when I look at the sport of drag racing and the people I've written about all the years, I look at Blake Wiggins and I see integrity. He's integrity. When I was coming up in the sport, and let me tell you something, we didn't have anything like Grammarly or word correct, and I was pretty bad of a writer. But that guy treated me like I was the editor of Hot Rod magazine. He would take time with me, and he would do interviews with me. Sometimes they might get published, sometimes they may not. but he still took the time to talk to me. That's integrity. First time I saw Blake Wiggins was in 1981 at Spartanburg Dragway. And any of you that was around in 1981, if you're at a bracket track and you see a Corvette come in and has a Fulton small block and a Doug Nash in it, that's just, to me, that was greater than my first kiss to see that car. He wind that thing up, dump the clutch, and go about 620s, I believe, at that time. And that was unheard of at that time. Well, as Blake kept going faster and faster, he became the face of what the changing mindset of top sportsmen was. It was to run as fast as you could. And then you had to worry about the whole breakout thing, but I don't think he worried much about breakout. He just put it to the floor and got the win, him and Gene Fulton. And so Blake was on the ground floor of what we know as pro modified today. There were no automatics. There was still some metal on the cars back then, right? And you could judge a normal pro modified run if you could see both doors from standing behind the car. They were all over the place. And I remember when we started the Quick Eights at Shuffletown Dragway, and that place was like the Orange County International Raceway for funny cars, but it was for pro mods. You had the best of the best. There was a whole lot of betting going on. The chicken bones were 2 feet deep on the fence. It was absolutely great. And I knew with Blake, he was either going to go real fast or he's going to blow the tires off of it. Is that about right? I think one time, I have a picture and I'll have to get it. I think his tires were bowed up till they almost touched. He was running against the Gaffney brothers Nova. And you had to beat those kinds of guys. Well, Blake, if you look at how Pro Modified was started, he was one of the guys that Pro Modified was on his shoulders. He had zero clue about being a professional driver, not in disrespect, but nobody did at that time. But you did what you did naturally. You went out there, you put on a show, and you gave the race fans the best they ever had. And I remember Blake going to Texas Motorplex, and Bill Coolman had just went a couple of 200-mile-an-hour runs. But Blake went out there and did it in a test run. He did it in a qualifying run, another qualifying run, and another one. And I believe he did it in eliminations too. And Blake really let these guys know the bar will be up here. When we become a professional class, this bar will be up here. And Blake ran for about 2 years after it became a professional class. And that was about the time that it was starting to separate, those who had to work a full-time job and those who were raced for a living doing this. And I always remember, I never heard Blake protest or fuss about another racer until he saw Scotty Cannon's funny car body pro mod, right? And he said, that ain't no Illumina, that's a 1992 fiberglass. And basically, that car changed what Pro Modified was. And for Blake, that was about the perfect time for his stepping off. But I can tell you, when you look at a person's body of work, Blake Wiggins' body of work was as pristine as you got in this class. That's why decades after he left the class, I still write about it. If you wanna praise Pro Modified, and you think it's the greatest class in the world, you go over there and pat that man on the shoulder because he helped build it. And with that said, I'd like to present for induction Blake Wiggins. Hey, if he gets to move his podium for here, right now.
sideways, I'll pull the parachute. But there's one thing about it, if it wasn't for people like Bobby Bennett, like that kept writing stories, we wouldn't have had Pro Modified today. And I appreciate it. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the panel for voting me in. I'm so unworthy of being here because you look at people like Garley Daniels, I'll just think him, and Warren Johnson, I'm right where God was between two thieves. But these guys are the best of the best of the best. And these guys have built more race engines than I've probably ever seen. So I am definitely privileged to be here with this group of guys. I love drag racing, but I only did it because I loved it. God gave me the privilege to do this. He gave me a wonderful wife, 2 wonderful children. Now they're grown adults, but they're still children to me. And I thank God for them and the opportunity to be here today. Because without them, I would not be here today because they kept me grounded. And life has been good to me. I'm fairly healthy. But the bad thing about it is every time I see one of my old racing friends, they can care less how I am. How's Wanda? I don't care if Blake's got a broke foot or whatever. But I'm okay. I'm okay. Other than having, COPD and a bad heart valve and all this kind of stuff, and my back being broke and put back together with steel, I'm good health. But several years ago, I had to go see a doctor. And he checked me over real good and looked at me. It's been a good while back. And he started scratching his head, said, "Let me feel about this." And we talked some more. He said, "I'll be right back." So he went in his office and come back. And he said, "There's no cure for it." He said, "But I'm going to write you a prescription. And you take this." He said, "You'll have to relocate." I said, "Mister, I can't relocate." I said, "I've got my family here, and my children's in school. I can't relocate." He said, "Well, you have to commute back and forth then to get your treatments." And he wrote up, he said, "I'm going to write you a second one out also." That first prescription said, "Go to Spartanburg, see Gene Fulton, buy a high-winding Prince of engine, and get you a new link hose." Because I've been running the Doug Nash. And he said, "That should control the symptoms. When you talk to Tommy Mooney, get a lighter car." Said, "If that doesn't take care of it, here's your second prescription. Go back, see Jim Fulton, get a bigger motor with more horsepower. See Tommy Mooney get a super light, good working race car, because the one you got's not doing the job." But without Tommy Mooney and Gene Fulton, Blake Wiggins would not be here because I did not have the expertise and the knowledge that those men have. Tommy Mooney, I beat him up like accordion sometimes when we was doing business together, but we come out, we're still friends. And Gene Fulton and I are basically the same age. I got a few days on him, but let me tell you a little story about Gene Fulton before I get too much in this story. But anyway, a lot of you people don't know it, but I come into drag racing backwards. Most of you people come into drag racing growing up, working on cars and going to the weekend racing, stuff like that. But I was born and raised up in the mountains of North Carolina. I didn't have any money. Had to work on the weekends at a gas station to make any kind of money. So I worked on the weekends and after school at night and everything. But anyway, I wound up down in Monroe, North Carolina, working with my brother in a construction company. And a man he had working for him owned half of a drag strip. So he got to talking to him. "Come on down the drag strip." Blake said, "You like, come on down the drag strip." He was baiting me. Took me down the drag strip, banged me in there. Well, let me see my half of this racetrack. So I bought half the racetrack. Owned the racetrack for a few months. Another man said, hey, let me see the other half of this racetrack, it'll be yours. So I bought the other half of that racetrack. And all it was grudge racing. But I could see something bigger, so I started running once a month. We'd have a modified production, or at that time, A-Gas was the elite of the elite at that time. So we'd have A-Gas racers once a month, and we'd have a modified race once a month. I went to Rockingham one weekend, and I was giving out posters. That's way before internet and all this kind of stuff. The only way you could advertise the radio was big ways in Charlotte. Anyway, there was a big radio station in Charlotte. We'd advertise on that, but my wife would make up these little handout posters. We'd go down to the copy place to have them made, and we'd go around and put these posters up at grocery stores and everywhere we could. So I went to Rockingham one weekend, and I handed out posters. I handed one to Gene Full. I didn't know Gene Full. He's just another man with another race car to make. But anyway, he won modified production down there. They had to run it on Monday, so this drag strip run on Tuesday. So he said he's just gonna spend the night and race that racetrack. So he did, and he won. And so next time I come from modified, I called him up, because back then you had to get telephone numbers from everybody so you could call them and let them know what's going on. You didn't post it on the internet and somebody read it, say, oh yeah, we're going. But anyway, I called Gene Fulton up, told him who it was. I said, you gonna bring that old Nova up here and race it? This modified production race guy? I might as well slapped him, told him his mama was ugly. He went off on me like a double-barrel shotgun. So I sort of tried to smooth that over. I said, well, I just want to know if he's going to come. Well, you better hope I come up there and run my car with all that other stuff that's up there. But anyway, so he come, and I hung the phone up. I told my wife, I said, I don't like that man. Now, Gene Fulton is a man you either love him or hate him. So he's a fine man. He's a personal friend of mine now, and I've known him. He went to every pro mod race with me that I ever went to and everything. He traveled with me. We'd tear that thing down at night and put pistons in it and everything else. No, but I'll get off the Fulton and Mooney deal there and tell you a story about, was that my wife? My wife was in the office one day, and she had a Polaroid camera in her, and she said, turn around. Said, smile. She took a picture of my Polaroid camera. She took those Polaroid film where I was just smiling, you know. She run off 12 copies of that. She had got in the mail where you could order stuff, some envelopes. On the outside of that envelope, it said, personal, confidentially, herpes test results. So, we mailed to some of our racing friends. The Steel Warrior from down in Darlington, South Carolina. But anyway, he had an immaculate operation there. He had a big gold chaparral trailer and a real nice truck to pull it, and the fanciest roadster you ever seen in your life. This thing, if it was a spot of dust on it, somebody better get it because he's going to fuss about it. But his mechanic was crew chief. He was the mechanic there at their shop. So she sends one to him. There's nothing in this envelope but a picture of me smiling. Sent it to his office. It didn't send it to anybody. Sent it to the office up there and then said, personal, Randy Page. No, it wasn't Randy Page. It was, what was his name? Loran Davis. Loran was Billy's crew chief on that car. But anyway, sent it to Loran, personal for Loran, and it went to his office. Sent one to Roy Hill, too. Sent one of my brother-in-law over there too. He worked for the county. We sent it to the courthouse. It went to the courthouse and through all those channels to get to his desk where he worked out of. But anyway, that went over big. And I'll not tell you about the other people we sent it to. But anyway, I get to Bristol, Tennessee. I walk up to the ticket booth where the drivers had to go get their tickets. Right beside where you got your tickets was a picture of me, that picture of me, not wanted. Description, height, short, face, ugly, hair, kinky. Socialize at your own risk. But anyway, Lorraine put those things on every light pole at Bristol. In the women's restroom. In the men's restroom. So he got me back good. I first thought it was Roy Hill did it. No, Roy Hill didn't do it. No, Roy wasn't satisfied nothing like that. The next race I get to at Bristol, I'm up there. We're racing. I make a good run. I go back to pit, pull the car up there, and I'm working on the car and everything, getting it ready for the next round. Nothing major wrong with it, just track duties. Debbie walks up and looks at my car. He's looking at my car and everything. Man, it's a nice car. I said, thank you, I appreciate it. So, walked around. I said, mind we look at the trailer? No, go ahead. He was in the trailer in there, looking around and around. He reached up and opened the cabinet, pulled his envelope out. Says, what's this? I said, I hope to God it's a BC powder. They look at me. He said, you're going to go with us. We're going to take this and test it. Up through the pits, through the staging lanes, all the way back to the tower, a policeman on both arms, not cracking a smile. We can't believe you did this, Wiggins. I'm surprised at you, Wiggins. Got in the bottom of the tower, went into the tower. Roy Hill sitting there, laid back on the recliner with his arm back there, lagged me. You don't know when you pull something on somebody else, you ain't what you better do. Since we're on the Roy Hill side, wasn't that race, it was another race later on. I've been to the tower to get my money that day. The race is over. I go back down to my motor home. Went in there, Roy Hill sitting on the sofa, sitting there talking. Wanda sitting there. About that time, Linda Vaughn comes out of the bathroom. I look at Linda Vaughn. I look at Roy. I said, I only got one question. I said, what's that? How did you get all of that in that little bathroom? And some of you people don't know how well endowed she is. When she got a blessing, she got double portion. I'm gonna make triple portion now, but anyway, she's a fine lady. So I'll get out the Roy Hill kick and everything. I'll get on to Ronnie Stocks now. I used to race Ronnie Stocks a lot, and it's probably the only racer that I have ever how many times we run. Mine's on the win column. Ronnie never beat me for some reason. He brought the best in me out. But anyway, we was at Farmington, and I was having a problem with the car. I dropped clutch on that thing. Tommy had built me a new car that year. He'd also built Ronnie Stocks one that year. In this car, I dropped clutch. It runs script, nice, starting mile. And then he'd start popping in the bag and going down the racetrack. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't change this, that, and that. Stocks come over there and he said, well, Wiggins, he said, I know I hate this, but your car's doing the same thing my car is. pull your ignition panel down. There's a Phillips setting screw in there that's on the main power. Put about 2 rounds on that because it's loose. Because my car's doing the same thing. And in the finals, Ronnie said, I told you I'd hate this. But anyway, another Ronnie Sock story there. We was at Bristol in the finals on the Summit Shootout on Saturday night. And Ronnie knew I hated to run on a freshly sprayed track. I'd rather the car do the work than somebody spray a bunch of VHT down and expect that to do the work for the car. But anyway, got up there for the finals. They most of me shut my car off and Sweet come over there. Now we'll get out, we got a spray truck. I said, I don't want my track sprayed. I leave mine just like it is. I said, my car will go down the racetrack. Hope. If one competitor wants track sprayed, we have to spray both lanes. I said, I don't want mine sprayed. He said, Blake, we have to spray both lanes. I said, well, can I show you where to spray and where to cut it off? Well, yeah, you can have us. So me and Gene go out on the starting line. We out working out there, and we go out about where he hit second gear. We tell them to shut the VHT off right there. And a lot of people don't realize that they cut that valve off. That don't mean all that stuff's out. It keeps dribbling out, going back. But anyway, we'd tell him where to shut it off. He'd shut it off. Ronnie Sock's over, he's laid back in his car. He's got Wiggins upset. But anyway, so I was out there. Every time he'd come down that track, I'd shut it off. And they'd shut it off. And then anyway, so they finally got it all fixed the way the officials wanted it fixed. Got my car, buckled up and everything, did my burnout and everything. Backed up there, pulled in the staging line. I dropped the hammer on that thing. The front end probably rose up about 6 inches, as level as somebody had a level on it. This car that went down that racetrack faster than anybody went down that racetrack all day. Ronnie Stocks left the starting line. He was all secure in that freshly sprayed line. The car shook so hard, both doors come open. If you could see it on the ESPN, both doors come open. And Ronnie got down to the end. I said, what happened, Ronnie? That car shook. I said, well, if you hadn't let them put all that VHT down, they'd probably done a pretty good job. But anyway, I enjoyed running into Ronnie. He was a good man. I'm not just saying that because he's not here, but he was a very strong competitor in Pro Mod and his Pro Stock years and all. And I just say I really appreciate the honor of being here with y'all today. And I thank each and every one that voted for me to be on this board. And rest assured, there's a lot of people coming along that deserve it as much as more than I did. But it's definitely an honor to be here with Carly and Warren and the great engine builders and all. And I appreciate Warren. He's done a lot for me. Might not seem a lot to him, but it was a lot for me when I was coming up. I watched him a lot, and he's always been a fine fellow. And I appreciate the opportunity to get to know him. Thank you.
Congratulations, Blake Wiggins. All right, folks, moving along here, I'll get Mr. Roy Hill. Roy, we need you to come on up, sir. We've talked about it, now we're going to hear from him as he inducts Warren Johnson into the North Carolina Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
I'm all right. You good? A little bit. Big Bob Hall with you and Bobby come get me. I'm gonna hold this thing steady. You know, I go quite a few places. And Steve Irwin started this because I started running a circuit with Steve Irwin. There's a Roy Hill story about everywhere we go. There's a book being written about me. And those stories, some of them are in that book. And Bobby Bennett's writing it. And they're true. I can't say enough for what Buddy Martin and Ronnie Socks has done for me in my life, or the Petties. But I can sure tell you this. Melvin Yao is one of my heroes. He took me to the West Coast with him about 70 or 71. I was just a kid. I started racing probably 10, 12 years before that with Sam Kennedy. And he died in 68. But anyway, he trusted me to go work on his car. And I got to drive a whole lot to the West Coast. Garley Daniels, God, I'm so proud of you getting in. Blake Wiggins, how can you say anything about him? Well, I can. And don't forget, Warren Johnson's coming, and the stories are true, because I go back a long ways. Blake, I watched you for several years, and I'm going to tell you something. The way you and Wanda handled yourself, I met you through Pat and John Norsha and the other son, I can't think of his name. And he was a fine family man. And he mentioned a racetrack, he said he ended up on it. I raced on that racetrack in Superstock. And they treated people the right way. The stories about Linda Vaughn and that motorhome, nobody but him knows that anymore. But she is the first lady of racing. My wife even loves her. And I love my wife. Roy had a little something every once in a while, and I chose to spend some money on the side of Blake's car. You remember that? Couldn't have been represented any better. But we're going to get on through that. I want to say one thing. There's a gentleman here, and I don't know how many of you have been helped by him, but I asked him to come. He owns Strutmasters, and he spent some money on some racers. Big money on some of them. Mike Ashley and Justin Ashley, Top Fuel Car. He has sponsored that car for several years. But he's the type person would come by and ask you how you doing, or you look like you're struggling, and he would hand you a couple $100, $500, and spend it where you think you need it, Roy. I've come along needing a lot of help, just like all the rest of you. It didn't happen overnight. There was a guy who moved in here from Minnesota. God almighty, where this, I didn't call him man, come from. And his name was Warren Johnson. And I watched him, and he was bad. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. He run Lee Edwards completely out of racing. Because Lee couldn't beat him. I shouldn't say that to him. But it's the truth. And Lee was a personal friend of me. He beat me more times than I can ever remember. But always remember, be careful beating Roy Hill, because one of these days it comes back to you. And it happened to come back one day in Atlanta, Georgia, first round. Lee was getting ready to win the championship. Warren, can I tell this?
Go ahead.
There's nobody really knows this but his wife. And so I won. And Lee's sitting over at the scales when I got there. He'd had a flat tire. Don't know how that happened or nothing about it, but thank God it did. Because I beat him. So he's sitting there waiting on me. And you stop in a line to get across the scales. And if you make it through the scales, then you get fuel checks. I always make fuel checks. I never have to handle that. But Warren's standing over, he doesn't been through the scales. We all know that's a very critical place if you race like Earl Hill, right on the money. And Warren's sitting there like this. You see how he's sitting there now? I always remember that man is thinking about something, whether it's that race or what he's getting ready to do next. I know him. And so Lee gets out of the car and waiting on me. And told me not to go on the scales. You heard me mention he beat me more than anybody that year. I had some people with me. We were in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, running a match race. He beat me twice, and I went to him and asked him, let me win this last race. I ain't letting you win nothing. I'm gonna beat your ass as deep in the ground as I can the rest of my life. You see me back up? Can't help it. He told me that. I mean, he said that. I had to turn around and walk off. The people I had with me was looking and watching to see what I could do for them. I've won a lot of races and I've been beat a lot of times. I learned early in life. I went to the West Coast with Sox and Martin in '68, and I learned something. Oh God, did I learn something. Thought I was going to work on cars and stuff. I drove the truck and did Plymouth dealership clinics. But something I learned is showmanship. Have your cars clean, have your rigs clean, and get you a uniform, a shirt. I've had some good people behind me. I never one time promised them that I'd be a winner. I told them I could represent them and do the right thing. It's back to yesterday we was telling stories in here. Next year, this place is packed, Bubba. Don't quit it. I got stories. I got my first sponsor from Hayes Jewelers. Boy, did I have some. It's all over the £quarter. Still have them. You know what I got? I told you yesterday what I got. I got a $13 Timex watch in '69. I've sold well over $1 million worth of diamonds for these jewelers. Okay, because of that watch. That's how much I appreciate them. They're involved here with the Shriners because of Jim Turner. I'm Jay's and Bubba's uncle, and I promised Jim I'd be here for him and raise all the money I could for him, and I always will. And I'm very proud, Bubba, you and Amanda doing what you've done the last couple of years. It will continue. But anyway, just do the right thing in racing. Warren on the other end, he was a hell of a winner. And I watched him, and I wanted to be his friend. I can tell you all kind of things, but I can tell you the first thing and the main thing is, it got to about $20,000 for me not to go on those scales in Atlanta for his first championship. And all I can tell you is I wasn't one. And he nodded his head and said, I'll take care of it. I got in my car, cranked it up, and put it on the scales. But before I did that, I reminded Lee of what he told me. And I don't regret it one bit. And I don't regret what I'm getting ready to say. I have been so fortunate. He called me one day. He said, about to lose Kurt. He said, everybody's trying to hire him. And they're using this driving job. And I don't know for sure he can drive, but I'm going to send him to you. He come. This is about 92, wasn't it? 93. I can't believe how my mind ain't working. Jan, write that down, remind me. He was the most natural talent that I've ever seen. And then he got real smart. And he made some runs. Attempted. We start out just what can you do? Drop the clutch. Shut it off at the top of first gear. That's about 60 foot. He done that 2 or 3 times. I'm required by NHRA and IHRA to do runs for future drivers. So he gets out of the car after about 3 of these launches and looks it over, leaned down and looked at the tires. Wanted to know how many runs was on it. I said, well, it's time to rotate them. Won't you take the jacket up and rotate them? I put people to work, especially now. There was 82 marks on the back of those tires. Oh, these things are about to blow out. They were wore out. No, they had just got a lot of the rubber gone off. They were ready to go racing. And we rotated them. It helped a little bit. And then by that time, he was going down the track consistent to that mile. And then we'd go into the 1,000 foot and we'd go to the quarter. I don't know what he was calling, telling his daddy. Don't make a difference to me because his daddy sent him up there for me to train him. You can't buy me off. Trust me. So we went to running some more, and I explained to him how to get down the track with a set of wore down tires. Is that the way to say it, Warren?
It wore off. They would make interviews.
So he got on through there and got his license. And I'll never forget this. When we got done, he left on Sunday, and I can't remember where he was going. Do you remember the next race he was running?
No, I really don't.
I think it was St. Louis. And he goes in St. Louis, and he has got his pro stock driver's license. I didn't have to say nothing to nobody. He started showing them things off. The Glens, everybody you can think of. He was so proud of his license, and I was proud of him. There was a guy driving Warren's second car, Don River. Don had no idea what he said when he said to Kurt, well, you're not really ready for this. It took all year, but Kurt pushed Don out of that car at the end of the year. And I'm very proud of what Kurt Johnson has done. All I did was teach him how to go up and down the track. But the big thing is, his daddy taught him everything. Warren, come on up here, I can't tell no more stories.
I've got an eye appointment Tuesday at 10 a.m., so.
That's all right.
Uncle Roy, America's uncle, Roy Hill. Warren, come on up here. Before Warren comes up, I just want to mention, he was the first pro stock car to run 200 miles an hour. That was in 1997. That's before he lived in Red Nitrous, I reckon. He won 2 IHRA World Championships, 13 IHRA national events, 6 NHRA World Championships, and 97 national events. Warren Johnson.
Thank you. God, I haven't seen this many people since I was in front of the NHRA Tech meeting with their lawyers. But thanks for the board for nominating me, and it's an honor to be with these people. Melvin, Rusty, Blake, Carly, congratulations. I was a little bit of an oddball. And listened to all these guys' story, and they had more fun racing. I didn't have a lot of fun. This is the way I made my living. So I was dead serious. And we raced AHRA, IHRA, NHRA, and match racing. We raced every weekend for a living. So I hated to lose, probably more than Roy. Of course, Roy got used to losing, but that's another story. But I have a lot of fun, even though it's a lot of work. It won't kill you. The worst thing to do is make you short. But when you go back and look at what I call the golden era of drag racing, that's where you go. These gentlemen, I enjoyed it. I don't mind working. Whatever it took is what you did. If you had to work 3 or 4 days straight without sleeping, that's what you did. I mean, failure was not an option. Unfortunately, when you lose, and you're gonna, sooner or later, you better learn why you lost. It's just an education is what it really amounts to. And I did it well, I was a late bloomer. I didn't start racing until I was almost 40. The rest of these kids, I don't know when they started. But I enjoyed it, made a good living, and met a lot of great people. I mean, I raced in Japan, Puerto Rico, Canada, all over the United States, so it was an enjoyable life. And I don't really need to embellish any of the stories or whatnot, but it was just a different way of making a living. Thank you.
Congratulations, folks. So let me just tell you a quick story here. The 3 years that Winston sponsored IHRA from 80 to 82, I had the honor, and Norman Jr.'s here with me too. And of course, my dad and his dad's passed on, but we had Pro Stock, and that was just our feature. That was the class, let me tell you. And Warren Johnson was there every year, showed up the first year in 80 with Jerome's Camaro, showed up the next year, won Big Ricky Smith in the finals, because he was, I don't think as many times he match raced Ricky there, and I've got it written down, he always won. But he won that year with that Prime Monte Carlo, and then the next year we had $1,000 up for grabs. For the first 4-second Pro Stock, he came that close. I'm gonna tell you, let me tell you, farming was farming. It ain't nothing special then. But he came within a 100th or so of taking that money. So thank you, Warren Johnson, for those great memories, sir. Now we move on to our next inductee. His son had been pushing this for a long time, and it's well deserved, because like I tell people, everybody deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. It's just little by little, we get you there. So I need Tim Wagner, and come up. I need Frankie Spittle. He wants to say a few words. Guys, got to keep it kind of short. And also Mr. Junior Kelly, come on up here real quick. induct Mr. Jim Whiter in.
Wow. What a stage has been set. All the inductees. Our congratulations to all of you. My name is Junior Kidd. It's my pleasure to be here, but more importantly, it's my honor to be here because I get to do something very special. I get to introduce a good and dear lifelong friend of mine who's the son of Jim Whiter, Tim Whiter. Now, I've known him for a long time. In fact, we both were in the same Cub Scout troop. We have a photograph that proves it, but actually the only thing it proves is that if you're an ugly kid, you grow up to be an ugly old man. I was talking about myself. Sorry. Jim and Tim had a very close relationship as fathers and sons do, and it started from childhood. Jim's love of drag racing on motorcycles stretched a lifetime. Tim would load up with him after Sunday school on Sunday morning and travel to Mooresville Dragway. It's a long life, and it was a huge bond that got bigger and bigger as time went on. So it's my honor to be here with you at this time. As Tim grew, he raced alongside his dad. They traveled all up and down the East Coast and into the Southeast. The surface didn't matter. It could be in a cow pasture, on grass, on dirt, on a blocked off street, on an abandoned airport. It didn't matter. They would race anywhere, anytime. Drop the rag. After Jim's passing, Tim's bond didn't end. Tim's bond grew more. And he wanted to know exactly what he could do to honor his dad even more. And so the Hall of Fame idea was bounced around, and it was kind of a neat deal because the Hall of Fame, of course, advertised that they were going to honor the professionals, but not forget the weekend warrior. And so Tim, of course, knew that his dad was the definition of weekend warrior on two wheels. So about a 9-year quest was begun, and Tim had a support staff of himself. Now, a lot of people have support staffs, and many of them mention them. When people come up here, they'll talk about the people that help them get there. It might be mechanics, it might be machinists, sponsors, wives, somebody else's wife, but there was always a support staff. But Tim created his own support staff. I know I should have said that. His own support staff. So he included people on the board, some of which are not with us. I think there's one lady that we've lost that was awfully helpful to Tim in his quest to try to get his dad where he needed to be in the Hall of Fame. So on October the 21st, Tim, myself, and 6 other friends were playing golf together in a little community called Waco. Waco is a little south of Cherryville, or Cherville, if you're from here. After the round of golf, we get back in the car, we start our way back home, and Tim checks his phone, and he finds out he's got some messages from people that he normally doesn't get messages from. He looks at me as we sit in the back seat together and he says, "Look, why are these people contacting me? I got one here from Bubba's wife, I got one from Phil Combs." Just a little bit of a pause. And then it seemed like a light switch went off, and he said, "He's in." He's in. That's the only thing it could be, right? Of course, I wasn't going to disagree. And so we continued on up the road. We stopped at a little place, a little restaurant, to get us a bite to eat after the round of golf, like we normally do, and a beverage. And as we're waiting on the food, Tim goes back outside to return 2 telephone calls. And sure enough, he verified and confirmed what he thought. Indeed, Jim Whiter was in the Hall of Fame. So he comes in and he tells us what he's learned. We're all very, very happy for Tim, and a joy that had shown on his face. It was something to see. His gratitude, his thanks, his joy seemed to come out every pore of his body. So we get back in the van, we start our way back to Hickory. And it's so much fun, and there's so much joy in the back seat of that car with a great big smile on his face. I thought I was riding back to Hickory with Joel Osteen. So, you know, he smiles a lot. So let me just end this. We'll try to continue this on. I would like for you, if you would please, to make welcome a very good friend of mine, or at least it was 10 minutes ago. A very good friend of mine and the son of Jim Weiner, Tim Weiner.
Wow,
Bless him, Lord.
I was okay until Junior spoke. I'll get it. And I'll keep it short and sweet. My dad raised for over 50 years. He went on dirt, he went on sand, he went on asphalt. He found out through the grapevine, somebody up in Surrey, Virginia on a sports car had been beaten 3 years. He drove 6 hours to beat his ass. And he did. And if you were in Daytona during bike week, you were out riding with us, we come up upon somebody, pull off, might have a little beverage or something, but be responsible. He'd get a nice bike, you want to try 'em? If you wanted to race, you found your man. He built his bikes, he tuned his bikes, he raced his bikes. That's all he knew. He got an independent shop for 32 years. And that's a long time for a man that could live in that independent shop. But I mean, he had everything. He had a flow bench, he had a board machine, he did all his work. And he did work for the local Harley shop. He was the motorcycle man in Hickory. And I don't know that I need to say any more other than that. If you came here today from Hickory or the road because you heard my dad was being inducted, would you please stand? That is the second legacy of Jim Weiner. Thank you.
All right, that's gonna do it. So see you guys later.